Today, we start our show by sending our hearts, condolences, and well wishes to the loved ones of shooting victims in Tumbler Ridge, BC. In a few moments, we're going to talk about a gentleman who united our province via his work behind the microphone. But today, we are united in grief, not only for Jim Robson, but for the Tumbler Ridge community and lives lost too soon. Security price for Wednesday, February 11th, 2026. We're a presentation of Bet365. We're coming to you from the Nation Network studio here at the historic Wall Center. Matt Sakaris alongside Blake Price, Mike Rogers and Hidden Switches conducting things with intern William Nyo. We've got a big show planned for you today, a sad show planned for you today as we remember the life and times of legendary Vancouver sportscaster Jim Robson. We'll get there in a few minutes, but of course, much happening across the world of sports, including at Milan and the Winter Olympic Games. And that starts our program today as we present the Yellow Dog poll question brought to you by Yellow Dog Brewing, Neighborhood Brewing, a Foolish Winery. What's your prediction for Canada's men's hockey team in Milan? You can vote gold, you can vote silver, you can vote bronze, or even off the podium. Oh, I couldn't imagine off the podium. Some of us lived through it in Nagano and in Torino in 2006, the last time the Winter Olympic Games were in Italy. But of course, we have had a deluge of gold medals since 2002 in Salt Lake. Well, that preceded Milan, but Vancouver 2010, and of course, in Sochi in 2014, the last time the NHL sent its best players to the Olympics. So, on the eve of Canada's opener tomorrow against Czechia, where's the head at?
Yeah, with no evidence yet in front of us for Team Canada, and yet already an upset in our back pocket watching Slovakia. Remember, Slovakia, the bronze medalists, so no slouches on the world stage. I think we still have to go with the chalk, and that is a Canadian Olympic team unlike any other maybe we have ever seen with, multiple, not since we've seen Gretzky and Lemieux both donning the Maple Leaf at the same time. I think, can we say that we have collected, multiple members of the top 10 players on the planet all on one Canadian team, having Crosby, McDavid, McKinnon, and Celebrini, having a new gen guy there as well.
Who is already one of the best players on the planet at age 19.
I think I am going to stay with gold.
I was terrified through the fall as I was sizing up that U.S. roster, because for me, this is the best team the United States has ever sent. And quite frankly, I think they missed a couple of guys who should have been on the team. Not to mention with the American advantage in goal. Then, of course, looking at teams like Sweden and Finland and knowing they've got a puncher's chance or better. And, of course, sizing up the Canadian team in goal. And it does look like Jordan Binnington will get there in a moment. But when they named Sidney Crosby captain, and I started looking at the different line combinations, and should also mention, this isn't the best Canadian defense that we've ever seen either.
Nope.
There's some potential holes there as well. But when I started looking at line combinations that were being rolled out, and I saw Sidney as the captain, and Connor McDavid there, and Nathan McKinnon, and Celebrini, as you mentioned, not to mention what I think is, again, some misses from the United States. Yeah, I think it's going to be gold again. I just have great comfort that Sidney and Connor and Nate won't let us loose.
I agree. The only caveat
especially with all the cups, all the Conn Smythes, all the big game winning. Bennett's on the team now. He was important for me. All the big game winners that we have, And you juxtapose that against the United States that just they don't have a lot of winners there. It's a handful of cups, a couple of them from Matthew Tkachuk.
The beauty, though, is an elimination tournament, right? Because if it's even a best of three, Matt, I don't think Canada can lose.
Yep.
But it takes one good goaltending night. We just saw it, again, back referencing this opener in the tournament. Finland outchanced Slovakia. This is chances. The shot clock was one thing, and it was 2-1 as well. But the chances were 27-13 for Finland, and they lost the game.
They were tripling Slovakia up in shots at one point.
So could you see that? Like
that's why you love it, though. Like it's that edge of the seat intensity where you can't wait to see what's happening next, even if you can hardly bear to watch. That's why we love single elimination at the World Juniors and the NCAA basketball tournament and even all these youth tournaments, right, where you got parents gripping in the stands, right? Because on your best day you can pull the huge upset. On your worst day you can get beat by a team that's not as good. Anyways, cast your vote. Let us know what you think. Gold, silver, bronze, or off the podium at the Sekerson Price X and YouTube channels.
And Yellow Dog wants to tell you about what's coming up with them, of course, and it's a busy time of year. What they're with the Chutoy Coconut Porter that they've just released. Yellow Dog's got this one. It's a dark and delicious porter with hints of chocolate and coffee, underlying sweet creaminess of coconut. Who doesn't want to try a nice treat like that? Find it in Yellow Dog Brewing's Porter Series mix pack right now. It's the Chutoy Coconut Porter.
Our top story today, goodbye to a legend, but with a special hello to the hospital patients and shut-ins, the pensioners, the blind, all the people who don't get out to hockey games but enjoy the hockey broadcasts. And did they ever enjoy the broadcast when Jim Robson was painting pictures with that unmistakable voice? We lost the Hockey Hall of Fame broadcaster yesterday at age 91. Jim had been battling cancer, a man synonymous with Canucks and sports broadcasts across his home province of British Columbia. From Port Alberni, Robson started covering senior men's basketball at age 17 for CJAV on the island. He would arrive in Vancouver calling Lions football, Mounties baseball, before linking up with the WHL Canucks pre-NHL era on CKWX. And, of course, he began his broadcasts with those famous words to the hospital patients, shut-ins, pensioners, and the blind. The irony, of course, being there weren't a lot of games on television back then, and so most people were experiencing them on the radio. It went a lot beyond the hospital patients, shut-ins, blind, and pensioners. You had 18,000 people in the building, and then everybody else experiencing it through the words of Jim Robson. When the Canucks went big time in 1970 into the NHL, so did Jim. He became the voice of the team, getting that national nod eventually on Hockey Night in Canada, where he called Stanley Cup Finals and was delivered to a broader audience. Called Canucks games for nearly 30 years, starting with the team's first NHL game in 1970, and more on that later in the program with Bill Good, gentleman who was on the broadcast team with him on that inaugural night. And retiring in 1999 after more than 2,000 plus broadcasts. You knew him longer than me. You were here and experienced his unmistakable, inimitable game call through your youth.
Yeah, and as I started in the biz, he was still going. And I remember just the royalty that he was as he walked around the arena. And yet, if you did cross paths and got a pat on the back from him or what have you, you felt like $1 million. You felt like you'd been knighted. And I remember being there when they named it the Jim Robson Broadcast Gondola as well, and what a fine moment that was. And then as the host of Canucks hockey on the radio for as many years as I was, saying his name every day. We're live in the Jim Robson Broadcast Gondola. It was. He was the Canucks in a lot of ways. Yeah.
You and I did many shows from the Jim Robson Broadcast Gondola. Mm-hmm. You did many more than I did. Jim was famous for a lot of things. I mentioned this in my tweet yesterday, but I'm not sure I've ever been around a sharper mind or a sharper memory than Jim Robson. And that extended to even this past November, just a few months ago, when Jim sat actually in this very seat. I was invited by Tyler Zickel, Walter Cosman, and the Vancouver Canadians to participate in a podcast about the 75th anniversary of Nat Bailey Stadium, Nate Capilano Stadium, which the Seas will be celebrating all season long. And Tyler said, hey, Matt, we'd like to use the studio. We got Jim. Do you mind participating? And I said, no, it'd be my honor. I'd never actually, other than when we had him on the show, I had never actually worked with him. He'd been a guest on our show a number of times. And so Tyler and I sat down and basically turned on the microphone and asked Jim questions of, what do you remember from the early days of this baseball club and of this stadium? And Blake, as you know, because I know you heard it, like sharp as a tack, like could tell you the weather that day. Could tell you who the pitcher was for the opposition. Like it was just incredible at age, he was 90 then, coming towards his 91st birthday, which was just a few weeks ago. So that was absolutely extraordinary. And actually, Tyler from the Seas sent Mike a note this morning saying we have been able to confirm that that was his final recorded session, as it turns out. So incredibly
and of course,
blessed and honored to be a part of that.
His Vancouver Mounties and Canadians history is so novel and amazing because he did a brand of broadcasting that cannot be replicated today in his recounting not even live, delayed recounting of a game. He reenacted the game based on very crude, effectively like court stenography reporting from
box scores, basically.
Yeah. But a play-by-play, very crudely typed out, that he would get the full report. And based on balls, like he would go meticulously through the at-bat as it was printed out to him, complete with, the ancient radio science of
I know
two things of wood being hit together to replicate the sound of bat on ball. It was the stuff that you think of in like the 1920s that lasted deeper than you would expect into Canadian broadcasting lore.
Yeah. Reminds me of the film where William H. Macy is the baseball broadcaster. Yeah, recreating the noises of the game. I mean, it was almost as much dramatic presentation as it was
one of those murder mysteries on national radio. Like it was.
Yeah.
I mean, again, like asking, like I'm just trying to think of, like if you asked me, and as a play-by-play guy, Blake, go and do that. Like, what?
Yeah. But so the talent there was just enormous, gigantic. The memory and the mind. But as J-Pat, and we've got J-Pat on a little later. I think it was Jeff, might have been someone else on the show today. He was kind of the internet before the internet. He went out and he found himself information on a day-to-day basis to be able to bring to the broadcast that was uncommon. And of course, he had a huge voice, huge voice. I mean, he projected like those old school broadcasters used to, project. And he had just charisma galore. And so what you had was just a master storyteller and a legendary broadcaster. And there are so many stories of Jim pulling people aside. I was a few years into my tenure here in BC, so this would have been 15, 16 years ago, something like that. I had begun doing weekly hits on the Blake Price Experience every Monday at 1 p.m., as well as doing the post-game show after Blake and Dave Tomlinson were done with Canucks games on our old radio station, and then ultimately got a chance to sit beside Barry McDonald and co-host with Barry on middays for a couple of years. And I had met Jim before, but he had one of those moments where he pulled me aside and he said, I got to tell you, I like you. I don't always agree with you, but I like the fact that you're not afraid to say things. You know, like I listen to some of these guys and they're so mealy-mouthed and they're so worried about offending people. He goes, I like the fact that you're willing to tell it as you see it. And he said he also said, I like the fact that you've brought your reporting experience and some knowledge of history to your broadcasts. And oh my God, like I was like walking. I did not walk home that day. I floated home that day.
Yeah, and he took his time to do that with so many people. It was, as I said, it was a coronation of sorts when you got it. It was great.
Yeah. The acknowledgments came far and wide yesterday. We'll start here at home. With the statements released, there's the Vancouver Canucks in loving memory of Jim Robson. A couple of photos of Jim there, and then one with his iconic powder blue Hockey Night in Canada jacket on. And there are the words that the Canucks had to say. This was the Vancouver Canadians, Mike, or the Lions?
That one's from the Canadians.
That's the Vancouver Canadians. Of course, Jim with his history with their forerunner, the Vancouver Mounties. There he is in a Canadians jersey. At the look of the smile there, Blake. That's just absolutely marvelous. I mean, Jim was a ferocious baseball fan. He had a couple of excellent seats behind home plate at Nat Bailey. He'd be there, Blake, on scorching hot nooner. You know, I go to like pretty much most of the nooners. I would show up to the nooners, usually a little late because we were doing the show, and I'd look one section over because our seats were just a little off center, and there'd be Jim with Greg Douglas in, you know, full-length dress shirts and a baseball cap, and it's like 30 degrees and those incredibly hot seats and everything, taking in all of the action. Here's the BC Lions as well. And note the Lions mentioned Jim was the second longest serving play-by-play man in their history. He passed off to J. Paul McConnell from 56 to 69. He did Lions games.
Who, incidentally, J. Paul was the one who first told me the story about how he'd reenact the baseball game. It was J. Paul, because after I went to the Black Tower. And so J. Paul McConnell, a legend in his own right.
Yeah.
Was basically telling me the story of, can you believe that this guy would do it? Like,
yeah.
Nobody could believe it.
Yeah. And we're going to talk about this with J-Pat and with Bill Good, who we have on the program today. A legacy of sportscasters from British Columbia. I mean, there he is with Jim Houston, and of course Jim Houston and John Shorehouse, forever linked to Robson because they followed his footsteps in the Canucks booth, but he inspired so many more and contributed to this ecosystem of extraordinary sportscasting across this province. J. Paul McConnell, Dan Russell, Don Taylor, Barry McDonald, Dave Pratt, Rick Ball, Ray Ferraro, Dan Murphy, Daryl Ray, who, of course, has done the Sharks color, or the Stars color forever, Dave Randorf, Peter Shad, Jeff Paterson, and the list goes on and on and on. But not just here in Vancouver, into the smaller markets across British Columbia as well. And, you know, these names may not be as household for those of us in Vancouver, but you're talking about people who serve important roles in their respective communities of bringing their local sports to light. Here's Regan Bartel, the voice of the Kelowna Rockets, who yesterday was highlighting Jim's preparedness. And it was legendary preparedness. Mike, do you not have that tweet? I perhaps forgot to send that one to you, but I saw Bartel with some marvelous words about Jim and his preparedness. We had our friend John Shannon on the show yesterday. John, of course, from Oliver, British Columbia. John said he put Jim on his Mount Rushmore of hockey play-by-play guys, and John's words, growing up in the interior of BC, my earliest hockey memories were narrated by Jim Robson. My transistor radio crackled with Jim's voice on CKWX and CKNW as he told us of the exploits of the Canucks. It was my dream to meet Jim. I did. It was my dream to work with Jim. I did. It was my dream to call Jim a friend. I did. He had a heart of gold and a passion to be perfect. Jim's impact on sports broadcasting in Vancouver will never be forgotten. perfect is a good word here, because for many of us, he was perfect behind the mic. For Jim Robson was far from perfect. The number of times, Blake, in my brief association with him, where I heard him
nitpick his calls.
Nitpick and criticize calls.
Yeah. Oh, numerous instances. He hates the Greg Adams call. He's talked about other ones as well, where he's like, me and Tommy weren't on the same page there,
Yeah.
or what? Like, we hear about athletes and golfers in particular. Often, there's never a perfect game. You're always trying to
exactly.
go on. And for Jim Robson, it certainly felt like that. There was never a perfect game, despite the meticulousness of his notes.
Oh. I mean, to use a golf analogy, he could shoot 59 and go, should have been a 58. I missed an 8-footer.
There was a 58 out
there. Here's our buddy Teddy Jenner on the island, who calls NLL lacrosse games on TSN, talking about in his early days trying to emulate Jim. And there was a lot of that. Our friend Pete Shad, who, of course, known for his soccer work, tweeted, while other kids were pretending to be their favorite Canucks players, I was dreaming of being this guy. Thank you, Jim. Simply the best. Mentioned the baseball work. Jim took both Rob Fay and now Tyler Zickel under his wing.
Mm-hmm.
Colin and Rob told a couple of stories there in a longer thread about Jim. But Jim took both of the most recent Vancouver Canadians play-by-play guys under his wing. Tyler became great friends with Jim. In fact, it was very common to see Jim and Tyler together during his last few years. I think it's been 4 or 5 years for Tyler here in the market.
Well, I think he knew that there was a stewardship there that was ultra important, given the sports landscape that we live in now, that the property was, was more delicate. A single A team in this sporting world is a different thing to be taken care of. And I think Jim wanted to ensure these guys had every resources available to them to make sure that it succeeded.
Yeah, and while it's now a 2-man booth with the C's, oftentimes a 1-man booth, right?
Oh, yeah.
And that's something else that, it takes a special person. It takes a special broadcaster and talent to be able to execute the 1-man booth. And Jim did it so magnificently. So that's the local level and across BC. Let's get to some national here. Here's Dave Hodge. Dave worked with Jim at Hockey Night in Canada. Jim Robson was too busy caring for the game to have any regard for fame. Great line. So perfect. That's absolutely spot on. Accuracy mattered more than a colorful style. His greatness was best measured by how obvious it was to British Columbians and to friends, colleagues, and hockey fans everywhere. I heard Shorty yesterday on radio talk about the number of gears that Robson had when calling a game.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, for a lot of play-by-play people these days, you're just either running 100%, turn it up to 11, or you've got the low gear when the home team is losing, and you got the high gear when the team is winning. And Shorty was talking about Jim had a lot of gears in between there.
That's the ultimate goal is to have that variety and to know that each moment has a different level of urgency, and how do I communicate that?
Right. And so cadence, and so tone, words, how many are used, at what volume. And John was talking about how he could tune into a Canucks game on radio in the middle of the second period, and just from listening to Jim's voice, he could know if they were playing well, if they weren't playing well, what the score was, were they behind, were they leading, was it tie? He was able to communicate all of that with just his tone and his inflections, which is truly a feat. Dave Randorf from this community called games on Sportsnet nationally before heading to Tampa to call the Lightning games, talking about Robson's inspiration. Jim Robson was as important to Canucks fans as the players on the ice. 100% right. We were talking yesterday, how many people are bigger in Canucks world than Jim Robson? Jim would never want to hear it, but it was true. Certainly was for me growing up in BC, one of the all-time greats, a pro on the mic, humble and kind in person, a major inspiration. I love that first line, though. And there are few Canucks who were bigger than Jim Robson.
Doesn't need to have been guys that were ever touching base in BC. Though John Bartlett, who's currently on Hockey Night in so he was one of the first people I saw, in fact, tweeting about this, and the respect coast to coast.
Oh, for sure. Blake, I saw a tweet yesterday from a gentleman named Howie Rose. Howie's become a legendary New York Mets broadcaster, but before doing the Mets, he did the Rangers for a number of years. And he wrote, Jim Robson is a name that's not going to mean a lot to New York City sports fans, but just wanted to let you know that in the hockey world, there were few better. He was an inspiration. He was kind to me, and on it went. And I mean, this is guy who's had like a 40-plus year career of broadcasting in the continent's biggest sports market. And there he was paying his respects to Jim. And despite the heights that Robson hit in his profession, he was as approachable as they came. I mean, no airs, no ego there. And as we've noted, he's always forever looking to build up young people in the industry. He cared deeply about this industry. Here's former Hockey Night in Canada producer on the television side, Alex Blair. Alex is a friend of Blake and I's. We watched him grow up under Farhan's wing and Perry's wing at CTV. How about this, Blake? Found Jim's name in the phone book and cold called him as a 20-year-old student on a broadcast assignment. He invited me right over the house. We spent the afternoon chatting in his office.
Yep, that was it.
That was Jim. Jim loved the coming together of our tribe as sports media folk. Like-minded people who could, share stories, understand the world in which we work and operate. This is from Jason Beck, the curator of the BC Sports Hall of Fame, who was also a great friend of Jim's. They got together for lunch. They called themselves the Fairly Old Boys Network. In the foreground, there's Jason on the left, Dr. Sport, Greg Douglas, who is as close to Jim as anyone, Dan Jukic there, Hastings track announcer, Mike Hall, Tommy Larscheid's in that photo, Grant Kerr, and some others. Jim kept that up until recently.
Pretty cool.
That's how much affection he had for this industry and for the people who worked in it. He made hockey broadcasting better. He made sports broadcasting better. He made BC better. He made humanity better. Rest in peace, Jim Robson. All right, as mentioned, we got a couple of guests who are going to talk about Jim today coming up on the program. Let's get into some hockey matters here. And before we get to the hockey matters from Milan, I did want to point this out, Blake, because we mentioned it was reasonably quiet leading up to the Olympic roster freeze. It was very quiet with the Vancouver Canucks, but we do anticipate that they will be active, and I do see one of the prominent insiders from newspapers around the league, Bruce Garriock, out of our nation's capital, saying he has talked to league executives who says the Senators are searching for a right shot defenseman and who can play in the top four and a top six winger. Connor Garland and Tyler Myers, my man, and of course Travis Green, the head coach of the Senators, would have an awful lot of familiarity with those players. And just for the context here, oftentimes when general managers are looking at improving their club for a playoff run or with an eye towards the Stanley Cup playoffs, they're going to rely on their head coach. They're going to go down to the head coach and say, hey, what do you think? What do you think? And of course, they want information. They want familiarity with the guys if possible, because they want to know how they're going to mesh in the room.
It's certainly the tiebreaker. Like if it's, we like so-and-so and so-and-so, you're going to go to the guy that you know that, yes, meshes into the room, but also you just know how they play. And if there's a chance that that player is going to mesh with the team and the style of play and the system and all that sort of stuff. So it's personality and play. You know both of them, and that goes a way farther distance than the guy that you don't know. So, yeah, it does help.
Yeah, it would not surprise me if you see a Canuck player heading to the nation's capital just because Travis Green would have a good familiarity with a number of these component parts. Canada's opener tomorrow against Czechia at the Olympic men's hockey tournament did not practice today, and no game day skate tomorrow. So we believe this is how they'll align based on how they have practiced. And there's the Vancouver kid, Macklin Celebrini, top line left wing beside this guy named McDavid, and Tom Wilson on the right wing there, Blake. Some had him as is he on the team? Is he off the team? Well, you can see what John Cooper thinks of it. More on that in a second. Brandon Hagel with Nathan McKinnon, Sam Reinhart of West Vancouver, Mitch Marner with Sidney Crosby and Mark Stone, Brad Marchand with former Canucks captain Bo Horvat, and Nick Suzuki of the Montreal Canadiens, Seth Jarvis and Sam Bennett as the spares. We can report that Seth Jarvis's crew of Winnipeg boys are en routes to Milan after Air Canada stepped up to bring them there. They made such a fuss at the Four Nations tournament last year. Everybody got a good kick out of them.
Remember, one guy sits of the Jarvis and Bennett.
You can dress 13 forwards, you carry 14.
I mean, you could dress 14 and go 6 defensemen if you wanted to, but I doubt they do that. But one of those guys will play, one of them won't. This is a balanced lineup. I think this is absolutely game one, Team Canada. And I think as the tournament proceeds into the medal round and elimination games, I think we'll see this change most likely because everything is spread out. I mean, Horvat's got a chance to put up numbers with Suzuki and Marchand on his wing. Like that's not going to be with a shutdown line per se. Like that's got offense there.
So here are the things I love about this. First of all, just love Celebrini with McDavid. I was wondering, is Cooper going to give Macklin a chance out of the hop to play with one of the prominent centermen, or was Macklin going to be playing with the fourth-line centerman? So I love the fact that he put Celebrini there. Of course, you have fewer responsibilities on the wing. Nobody plays and carries the puck with more purpose and with more energy and with more joy than Macklin Celebrini. We've talked about him as being a touchstone, a mascot, somebody who could absolutely bring the room up with just this infectious joy and energy. If you've ever met or seen Macklin Celebrini interview, I mean, he will light up your day. So I just love the fact that he's got Celebrini in a prominent role. And I got to say, I'm kicking myself for not having realized it. If you're going to play Celebrini with Connor McDavid, what do you want on the other side? You want an intimidator. You want somebody who is going to let it be known you don't screw with McDavid. You don't screw with the 19-year-old Celebrini. So I think Tom Wilson in that spot is absolutely brilliant. From the lawyer from Prince George, John Cooper, head coach of the Canadian men's national team.
If Tom Wilson is going to be there, I hope to God, when they eventually do face the Americans, there better be one massive hit on a Tkachuk.
Well,
he better blow up a Tkachuk if he's going to be getting that kind of a real estate.
Of course, Wilson is skilled. He can play with talent. He has in the past.
Put up numbers, yeah.
So you say the Tkachuks, and I'm with you there. I would also like to note that JT Miller is playing left wing for the Americans, so you have the delicious
if I was
possibility.
Worried about JT Miller,
does JT want to start a fight again right off the hop here? Probably not with Tom Wilson. The other thing that I'm looking for, Blake, somebody's got to put a hellacious hit early on itty-bitty Quinn Hughes. We know how teams have played him. We know, first of all, it's very hard to hit him. He's very agile. He's very shifty. It's hard to get a good hit on him, much like Patrick Kane and some of the other terrific little guys in NHL history. But we know how teams have tried to play Quinn Hughes in the past. And his brother, frankly, too. Tom Wilson, want to see a really big hit on one of the Hughes brothers. And if it happens to be on a forecheck on Quinn in the end boards, oh my, what a message that could send.
Well, just keep in mind, though, fights means ejections.
We're not talking fights. We're talking hits. I said hits.
No, but you mentioned fights earlier.
Wow.
That's an ejection. So I don't know that we're going to see a drop the gloves fight.
And, of course, we're looking forward to a match against the United States here. There's plenty of games to go between now and then. I love McKinnon with Reinhart. I think Reinhart is one of our best goal scorers. And so I just love the fact that you're terrified if you're the opposition of McKinnon and Reinhart. The one change I would look at, two. Marchand, Horvat, Suzuki, okay? I'm a Bennett believer. I would probably play Bennett over Marchand. I'm a little surprised that Mitch Marner isn't with McDavid or McKinnon. And I say that, Blake, only because I think Mitch Marner is our best creator and playmaker off the wing. And it's not like Sidney is not a good offensive player or not a good shooter or anything like that. But I would have thought you wanted to play Marner with the two guys who I think are our best finishers down the middle, McDavid and McKinnon. And, of course, we saw a lot of Marner with those guys at the Four Nations.
I just think it's about balance. He's got Celebrating McDavid as the offensive options on the first. McKinnon, Reinhart are the offensive options on the second. Marner and Crosby are the third line offensive options, then Horvat and Suzuki, I think. And Stone, if he is going to contribute, like he'll be a standstill shooter, he'll be stationary, and Marner can set him up. So I don't hate it.
Yep. Oh, no, I'm not hating it. I'm just saying. Because to me, Hagel, Crosby, Stone, that is your lockdown line, right? Like, no one's scoring against that line with the way Hagel and Stone play the defensive side of the puck.
I think a guy that could come out is Stone.
I'm with you there, too.
Like, if Stone proves to just be too slow to keep up with this group, I could see Bennett going in for Stone.
Yeah, and it is a smaller ice surface by 3 feet.
Yeah.
The other thing is Marchand's defensive metrics have not held up this year. I do think you have to shelter Marchand a little bit. We know Bo's a good 5-on-5 defensive player, and Suzuki is as well.
Yeah.
But I would not be surprised if Brad Marchand is getting skipped over if you're protecting a narrow lead late in the third period. As for the defense pairs, look, Taves, Makar, we know that. Of course, Abbotsford's Devon Taves. It stood to reason that Morrissey was going to be a second pair left side defenseman. He's our third best defenseman, period. I was a little surprised to see Doughty as one of the three right shot defensemen on the team skating on a fourth pair there. Now, again, we'll see who sits and who plays. And
I think those are
Doughty hasn't been great since being picked to the team.
No, those are the six best defensemen there on the top. So I think he's just gone with the six best defensemen.
So we're going two lefties on the third pair with Theodore and Sanheim. And Sanheim has played the right side in the past, not as much this year.
And I think you have Doughty as the seventh guy.
Okay.
If you just find that everybody is struggling picking the puck off the boards there on the right side with the left stick, and you insert as needed.
Harley was excellent last year, and Harley was terrific in the Four Nations. It has not been as good a year for Thomas Harley this year, but I do wonder whether he can rekindle what he had going on at last year's Four Nations and find his way into this lineup over Aldergrove, Shea, Theodore. We'll see.
Would not surprise me.
And then we get to goaltending, Blake, and it does look like John Cooper is a stand-by-your-man type of guy, and that it's going to be Jordan Binnington in the opener against Czechia. Now, he has cautioned both goaltenders are going to play.
Back-to-backs. So they are going to play both of them, or both two. They're going to play two guys. One assumes it's Logan Thompson.
With Binnington starting against Czechia tomorrow and Thompson starting against the Swiss on Friday.
Yeah. I mean, I think he does owe Binnington a start.
Yes.
But I don't know that because he's starting the opener, that means he's the clubhouse leader.
I think that's also true, and I will point you back to starter, co-starter arrangements in the past, whether it was Roberto Luongo here in 2010, who did not get the opening nod to Marty Brodeur, but Marty Brodeur had to play the more difficult opponent in the United States to lose that game, and guess what? Louis takes over, and they rode that one. Some of you may remember 2002 in Salt Lake City. Curtis Joseph was given the nod by his club head coach, Pat Quinn, at the time with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Curtis Joseph lost a preliminary round game to his teammate Matt Sundin in the Swedish club. Marty Brodeur took over against an easier opponent. Marty Brodeur rode it through. So you could have that going on here as well, Blake. If Binnington doesn't look good against Czechia, and I mean, I don't even want to utter it, we lose to Czechia, then I think you're looking at the Logan Thompson show going forward.
I mean, it would seem preposterous for this Canadian team to pretty much lose to anybody but the Americans, maybe the Swedes.
Yeah.
But it's one game.
Well,
it's
one
game.
Dostal, Vejmelka, these are quality goaltenders. Like they're not Hasek, but could they stand on their head for 60 minutes? Yeah, it's possible.
And
especially as the team is developing chemistry, like it's. And we'll talk to Patrick Johnston about this, who asked a very prescient question of John Cooper, saying, "What exactly are you practicing here with only 3 sessions?" So, can it be a slow start? A team that doesn't quite yet have chemistry and doesn't quite read off each other well enough, whereby you find a way to lose the first one? We watched a superior Finnish team lose to the Slovaks this morning.
So that is generally the way we discuss goaltending and the ability to steal victories. But I will say this. There becomes a critical mass of supreme talent where eventually you just say,
yes,
the team is just too damn good. And again, I go back to Lemieux and Gretzky as the best indication of that, where when you're that good on the ice, that skill eventually just overcomes even the best goaltending. And a couple days ago, I saw the dummy play by Lemieux, the best assist that never was, where he lets the pass from the blue line go through his legs, pretends to sweep at the puck. You know what? That wasn't even that good an acting job, Matt.
No, it wasn't.
He does the sort of the reach behind as if he's going to grab it, but it's sort of a soccer dummy play, lets the puck get through to Korea, and Korea's got an empty net to shoot at because everybody's concentrated on 66.
Yeah.
But that's the sort of greatness where eventually you just should score. You should. And when we talk about, again, the big 4 there on the forwards, McKinnon, Crosby, McDavid, and Celebrini, you just should score.
Well,
it shouldn't matter.
And to your point there, I mean, that is Chris Pronger, an MVP-level defenseman who threads
Hart Trophy-winning defenseman.
Hart Trophy-winning defenseman. Yeah. Through the wickets of Hart Trophy-winning centerman Mario Lemieux onto the stick of Paul Kariya, who in 2002 was in the conversation for best hockey player on the planet.
Yeah, and if not for injury, might have been in that same echelon.
Yes. Think of it as a baseball lineup. You've got 930 home run guys. Eventually the ball's leaving the yard, right?
Dodgers. MVP.
Well, you may have seen the Canadian team at the short track speed skating yesterday doing the wave and riding the subway under the watchful eye of chaperone Sidney Crosby.
Guys, this way, don't touch the banisters.
Yeah,
more
on him in a second. There they are on the Milan Metro. Fellow Nova Scotian Nathan McKinnon, who did participate in the wave, Blake, it must be said.
Captain No Fun.
Was not planning any fun.
No.
And we call him chaperone Sidney Crosby because take a look at the team photo with Sydney in the position of school teacher, just a little offset to the side, right? Oh, there's the class, and I'm just going to stand a little bit off to the side.
But you've also got to zoom in at some point onto his face. Google homework for you, because everybody else has got a pretty genuine looking and smile. And Crosby's got a genuine smile. I'm not saying he's fake, but it's very much the teacher's smile. Like, this is my job.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's perfect. Yes, McKinnon wasn't planning any fun. Mike, do we have that graphic as well? The Q&A with Nathan McKinnon about taking it all in at the Olympics. There it is. So he's asked. He says, I want to enjoy myself, but I'm not here to enjoy myself. I'm going to do everything I can to play well, and hopefully it's enough, and hopefully I can contribute. He gets asked, don't you have to take this all in? No. Chickpea pasta and 7 p.m. bedtime. I'm here to win a gold medal. You know what, though, Blake? You need that. You need one guy in the room that everybody else is afraid of, and that is Nathan McKinnon. The one guy, even in a room of luminaries, of cup winners, of Conn Smythe and MVP, one guy that you're afraid to cross. You don't want to disappoint.
Better team. 87 Canada Cupper, this one.
Oh, don't get me. I would need the roster in 87 in front of me.
But those are the only candidates. Let's be clear. I don't care how
the
good.
The 2010 team was.
No.
No. Come on. 02 and 2010 were exceptional teams. So if you're going to ask me that, Blake, I'm going to say not this one just because of the goaltending.
Yeah.
And I could probably pick apart the defense with 87 or, frankly, maybe even 02 and 2010 as well.
Yeah, I guess in my mind, I'm thinking of just forward
group, it may very well be the best we've ever put together.
It might be the best forward set. But totality of team, I can accept that. There's more debate.
As for the Canucks at the Olympics, well, the Swedish forward lines, we talked a little bit about this Monday, but it seems to have crystallized. And there you have it. Elias Pettersson in the middle of the third line with Rickard Rakell, Mika Zibanejad. Now, everybody was scratching their head as to why Philip Forsberg is the extra forward on this team. Like, he's a better player than Holmberg or Landeskog on the wing. The other thing I think we should just keep in mind, Petey's a left shot center. Zibanejad is a right shot center. You may very well see Zibanejad taking the strong side draws, Petey taking the strong side draws. It's going to be more about who plays center ice after the faceoff. We saw this, of course, once upon a time with the Lotto line when JT would take the faceoff but effectively flip over and play the wing with Petey in the middle. The other thing here, I was quite disappointed about this. He's not even on the second power play unit for Sweden. There you look at the two power play units for Sweden, and the first one, Rasmus Dahlin, is going to be your quarterback with Raymond and Nylander on the flanks, Kempe in the bumper, and Eriksson Ek is your net front guy. But the second one, Erik Karlsson running things, Bratt and Zibanejad on the flanks with Rakell in the bumper and Landeskog as the net front guy. I'm disappointed not to see him there, but where would be the spot for Petey on the Swedish power play?
Yeah, it's going to be tough. And I know people are probably recording games, so I'm not going to spoil it too much for you. But through a period of play in this game, Sweden versus Italy, you're going to need to watch the whole game, I think.
Oh, wow.
And I'm also going to make a bit of a leap here after looking at the statistics through a period of play here, Matt. Elias Pettersson has played 3 minutes and 45 seconds in the first period.
Yikes.
Guys like Jesper Bratt, 5.5 minutes. Elias Lindholm, 4.5 minutes. Rickard Rakell, 4:42.
Please tell me he's playing more than like Holmberg.
Pontus Holmberg, 4:56. Elias Pettersson is on the end of the bench with Philip Forsberg. 107 for Forsberg, one shift, and Elias Pettersson at 345. Those are your low ice time guys in the forward set. And if you had told people that 2 years ago, Matt.
Did he
Philip
sewer himself with coach and this national team last year with this performance?
He very well might have. Very well might have. 5 shifts for Patterson, 1 for Forsberg. These are 2 of the best players in the NHL 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. And they can't get on the ice right now for Sweden. Wow.
Somebody has to have a word with Swedish head coach Sam Hallam. Black Betty, Sam Hallam. Not my line. Saw it on Twitter yesterday. And then there was this from Ian McIntyre. First of all, Petey says he's not looking for any outs and wants to be part of the solution here in Vancouver. But then secondly, and this was meaty stuff from head coach Adam Foote, saying it would be good experience to play at that pace, meaning the Olympics. I think there's another pace he can play at, and he's aware of it. We've been having deep discussions with our coaches in him, and he's owned it. He's been way more open to discussion about it this year. I hear that, and I just want to bite my fist. He's been way more open to discussion about it this year. He's uncoachable, Blake. This has been the knock on him. He wants to be left alone. No, I'll figure it out with my talent. I'm my harshest critic. Elias, accept help. I mean, he's not at that level a player where a head coach or a assistant coach or coaching staff at large should be able to go to him and say, we need you doing this, and him going, yeah, coach, got it, gonna do it. Like, he's not this hockey Zen master who has it all figured out. That was, I saw that and like, it just pierced my, I'm like, what? He's been way more open to it? What did Alain Vigneault always tell us about Alex Burrows? Why do you like him with the Twins? He gets them playing with pace. Mm-hmm. Do you think Alain Vigneault ever had to go, no, Hank, Danny, now I really mean it. You really got to play with more pace.
Yeah, which is why I think people are going to jump on board more and more with the possibility of him moving on and only finding himself again somewhere else.
Yeah, he said he's okay. Teddy Bluger centering Latvia's second line between, one former NHLer and a European pro. Abbotsford's Henri Ravinskis, who you may remember was named as a replacement to the Latvian team after an injury. He is not amongst their top 12 forwards. We'll see if he dresses and gets any ice time for the Latvian side. They start against the United States tomorrow, so meaty opponent. And then Lucas Reichel, who couldn't do anything with the Vancouver Canucks, went down to Abbotsford, is looking for a trade. Well, he's going to get top-line duty with Leon Draisaitl on the German team. I thought it was pretty interesting that they gave Reichel to Draisaitl, and then they gave Peterka to Stützle on the German side of things. So looking to juice Stützle a little bit and saying Leon's...
Honestly, Matt, I think, here's my hot take. You haven't done these in a while. Lucas Reichel outscores Elias Pettersson at the Olympics.
Yeah, playing with Draisaitl, I could see it. Anyways, just so excited for this tournament to get going. It has been 12 years since we've been able to do this best on best under the rings in Milan. Can't wait.
And if that opener, if you've taped the opener, you're gonna love it. Like a Slovakia-Finland game was so good.
I thought you meant the Swedish game here.
No. The Slovakia-Finland game was a
terrific.
Barn burner.
It was terrific.
Of a 4-1 game.
A lot of fun. Yes. So we'll have our program tomorrow at regular time. The Canadian men play tomorrow at 7:40. So that game should be over about 10:15. We'll be hitting the stream at 12 noon Pacific. Mm-hmm. And then on Friday, little later start for the Canadians. It's Canada-Switzerland at 12:10. So we're effectively going to be like a post-game show there, like 2:40, 3 o'clock, somewhere in there, whenever that game comes to its conclusion. Let's get to our menu today. It's brought to you by our friends at Greta. Fantastic spot to pregame or postgame because you are mere steps from the arena or the stadium. If you're looking to host an event, no better spot than Greta. They have awesome food. They have a outstanding arcade. Your guests will have so much fun. So for more info to book your event, go to gretabar.com, Greta 50 West Cordova. Let the games begin. Big show, as I mentioned off the top here. We'll start with Jeff Paterson. Jeff joins us from his vacation. He's off this week, but we couldn't imagine doing a Jim Robson memorial show without Jeff's voice in it. Jeff had spoken so much about Jim in the past and what he meant to him personally, that basically Jim Robson's the reason why he got into this racket. So we'll talk to Jeff about the life and times of Jim Robson. We'll be joined by Patrick Johnston of the Province and Postmedia from the Olympic Games in Milan. Patrick covering the men's hockey tournament with some insights on the Canada side of things, and on Elias Pettersson with the Swedish team. Bill Good, who worked beside Jim on the inaugural broadcast for Vancouver Canucks hockey in the NHL in 1970. Bill actually served as his color man once upon a time on Hockey Night in Canada. I was stunned to hear that. But it was kind of an era that predated the ex-player as broadcaster, and so
Tom Marchand was part of that.
Yeah, I mean,
football guy in a hockey booth.
Exactly. So Good found himself right beside Jim, calling these games on Saturday nights for Hockey Night, and so catching up with Bill from his retirement spot on the Sunshine Coast, and then later in the program we'll discuss more of Canada's performance at the Olympic Games. The Whitecaps kits are out, and all sorts of bad news for the Blue Jays. So all of that is coming up later in the show. Time now for our Bet365 bets of the day, and I was a gigantic loser on mine. I had Finland at margin winning this game against Slovakia, so shame on me. You go ahead. What you got?
I'm looking at a guy that has had a lot of big moments in the last couple of seasons in particular, has risen to the occasion, and he's going to be given every opportunity to score goals at this tournament. It's the local kid. Pride of BC. Pride of the North Shore. Pride of West Vancouver. Sam Reinhart. Plus 210 is an anytime goal scorer versus Czechia tomorrow.
Yeah.
And there's good. The favorites don't like their numbers. The middle class here, Cale Makar's a plus 210. Power play.
I would bet that they would defensemen are going to defer a little bit here.
Marner plus 210, not bad, but I think Reinhardt's the best of the plus 210ers.
Well, the thing I like about Reinhardt is that if he's playing with McKinnon as they've practiced, Nathan is going to draw so much attention, and particularly from defensive-minded Czech centermen like Kampf, right? That you have to think that Reinhardt's going to have some time and space available to him, and with a guy who's pretty good playmaker.
And what's impressed me about Reinhardt's goals in the last couple of years, he's got better handles than he showed in Buffalo. His ability to drag and into space and create space inside that phone booth.
Yeah.
Get a quick shot away.
He's a superb player.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the Canada-Czechia game as well. And I looked up and down the menu. The number that jumps out to me is the over-under set at 5.5. Now, it does look to be trending up because you're paying almost twice money, minus 182, to get the over. But I'll go over 5.5. And heck, I'll go over 6 if it happens to move up to 6 as well. This segment, a presentation of Bet365. Whatever your bet, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app, get in on the game. Use code NATION when doing so. Must be 19 or older. Please play responsibly. Jeff Paterson coming up next. So Harrison Price from the historic Wall Center. We're joined by our Canucks reporter, the host of Rink-Wide Vancouver, Jeff Paterson, from his vacation. But Jeff, you were the kid with the transistor radio under the pillow, listening to Jim Robson. Some thoughts on the man we lost yesterday?
Yeah, it hit me, and yet at 91, I think we all knew that this day, unfortunately, was coming. But like so many others, and first of all, I have to say, like when the news, so I saw it on social media, and it hit me, and it hit me hard. And my thought went to his family. But beyond that, and quickly after that, I couldn't get over sort of how full my heart was with joy of the memories that Jim Robson had provided to me personally, but to this province. And all of the tributes that have poured in across social media. I've consumed so many of them, and so many of them back up my belief about the man, the broadcaster. He truly was a legend at the microphone and an even better human being. And so many people have said that. That's my experience with Jim as well. But yes, as a young kid, like so many others that grew up in Vancouver and around British Columbia, I too went to sleep with the transistor radio and the little one earphone in. And I think this is important context that people either don't know or maybe some have forgotten. But for the first decade of Canucks hockey, home games at the Pacific Coliseum started at 8 o'clock on weeknights. So you think about kids going to bed, and with all the fights and the brawls and everything, like games would go to 11 o'clock. I imagine I wasn't allowed to stay up till the conclusion of many.
You don't know when they ended, yeah.
Exactly. But so they started late and they went long. And so guys like me would start the night listening to Jim on the radio, and then you doze off. And I imagine my parents came in and took the radio away. But I share those memories with so many. So when I saw that sort of sentiment across social media yesterday, it brought me back to a young boy growing up in North Vancouver who loved the sport of hockey. And honestly, guys, Jim Robson played a huge role in not just fostering my love of the game, but this man was a massive inspiration. And really, probably the biggest reason that I pursued a play-by-play career early on and was fortunate enough to spend some years at the microphone out at UBC doing Thunderbird games on CITR, and then the 5 years that I called games in the Western Hockey League in Kamloops as well. And I tried to incorporate a lot of what Jim Robson delivered on his Canuck broadcast into mine in my own sort of peculiar way, much as an homage to the man himself, but also because he did it better than anybody else. So why wouldn't you want to borrow from the techniques and just the ways that he went about describing hockey on the radio?
And if you had told that little boy trying to go to sleep that he would one day work with and around that same guy, he probably wouldn't have believed it. But you did, and I'm sure early on in your career that you remember, those first couple of meetings with Jim Robson, and you say that you emulated him a little bit on the air. Well, you actually got to meet the guy, and ultimately, I'm sure there was some sculpting of your career even at that point.
Well, it's funny, Blake. You think about every level of organized hockey now with the internet. I don't care if it's like major bantam to all of the junior levels up through pro ranks. With the internet now, every game is streamed, right? Somebody's calling games. There's so many opportunities. I used to think this, and it kind of blew my mind. I spent a lot of my Friday and Saturday nights out at UBC as a student, getting involved in campus radio with an eye to doing this for a living. And so I got to call UBC football games and hockey games and basketball games, and my friends running around joining fraternities and all that kind of stuff. And I had my fun on campus, but I devoted a lot of my spare time to calling sports on the campus radio station. And so there were a ton of nights back then, and this is the late 80s into the early 90s, where Jim Robson and I were the only two people in Metro Vancouver calling hockey on the radio. He was on CKNW, had a much bigger platform with the Canucks, and I was doing Thunderbird games. But there was no in between. Nobody else was broadcasting over the air, and I just always, and to this day, think that's one of the coolest things that Jim and I were sharing the airwaves to some degree. And then growing up listening to CKNW, sort of feeling like these people that are these voices in the radio. And then you're right, sort of taking career paths to put myself in a position. I was fortunate enough at the end of my time at BCIT that I got to do a practicum at CKNW. And part of that was getting to go to Canuck games and just sit in on the pre and the post game. And I think that was the first time that I maybe had ever met Jim Robson, the man himself. And you're right, like it was an absolute thrill. There's these moments, is this happening? Is this for real? And sure enough, and he couldn't have been kinder back then. And then as I was able to progress in my career and start to cover the Canucks, you would see him more and more. Now, he had retired just as I was starting back in Vancouver after my time in Kamloops, but he was around the rink, he was around the team, you would see him, came to a lot of the games in the press box. And so, you forge a relationship, and this idea that this man knew who I was and stopped and spent time with me and wanted to talk hockey and ask about my family and those types of things. Again, it's all kind of mind-blowing now. So yeah, it really was a thrill and an honor to get the chance to not just meet him, and I tweeted this out yesterday, guys. Early in my time in Kamloops, Jim was invited to Kamloops by the Blazers and the radio station to be the guest speaker at the Blazers year-end awards banquet. And as part of that, he came in a night early. The Blazers were playing a game, and Jim Robson spent the first period as my color commentator. Like, just stop and think about everything that I just said growing up, revering this man, and now he is to my right with a headset on, and of course, in Jim Robson fashion, he knew nothing about the Kamloops Blazers, but he had done his homework, and he came with a little notepad, and he had some things that he wanted to work into the broadcast, and I was absolutely terrified and completely over the moon at the same time. Here I am starting out in my broadcast play-by-play career, and I have the one and only Jim Robson as my color commentator. So that part is a memory that will always stick with me, as will the fact that through the radio station in Kamloops, they had asked Jim to critique tapes of mine. Think about that for a second.
Oh, wow.
Jim Robson listening to cassette tapes of Jeff Paterson starting out as a young play-by-play guy. And then I receive in the mail a hand-typed by Jim Robson 2-page letter with all sorts of notes of things he liked, things that he thought I could do better. And in sort of Jim Robson fashion, it was a critique, but there was nothing really critical. Even the things that he wanted me to work on were done in such a kind fashion that spoke to the man himself. And I still have that letter and always will, tucked away in a filing cabinet at home. So absolutely a cherished memory and a cherished keepsake from Jim Robson.
I couldn't help but notice yesterday, Jeff, as I was watching the tributes pour in, look at the legacy of sports broadcasters in his wake from this province. And you can go back even to guys like J. Paul McConnell and Bernie Pascal. I mean, of course, Houston and Shorthouse are the guys who followed in his direct footsteps with the Canucks. And look, this is an incomplete list, but Rick Ball, Ray Ferraro, Jeff Paterson, Darryl Ray, Dave Randorf, Dan Murphy, Dan Russell. Kenny Albert isn't a British Columbian, but he'll be the first to tell you that Jim was as much an inspiration to him as his dad Marv was. Boy, it is a who's who sort of sports broadcasting that followed in Jim's wake out of this province.
Yeah, and I was struck by that yesterday as all these tributes came in, that we know sports is tribal, right? And so in most markets, a radio play-by-play guy is revered. He's taken to another level. But they're not all at the same level in terms of their ability. And so, I think of Rod Phillips in Edmonton or Peter Marr in Calgary, and they were beloved in those markets, and they were great at what they did. But when I saw the national recognition yesterday from some of the biggies in this industry in this country, and it just reminded me that Jim had risen above, that to get to call 4 Stanley Cup finals on Hockey Night in Canada and All-Star games, there was sort of this, he's one of ours, but we're going to share him with a bigger stage because he deserves it. And the other part was he stepped onto those stages and he absolutely crushed it, as we all knew that he would. He could have gone national, but yeah, and he did to some degree, but he was always ours. And it just kind of felt like we could share him with the rest of the hockey world. So I was delighted to see, Chris Cuthbert's getting ready to call Olympic hockey, and he took time to salute. And I was glad to see Ron McLean with his tribute ahead of the first men's hockey game, and it deservedly so. Jim was that good. Like, I think of that 1980 Stanley Cup final, the thle to Nystrom, absolutely nailed that call, and that's the Islanders winning the first of their 4 Stanley Cups. Like, there's historical perspective to what they accomplished, and in that moment, he doesn't overcall that goal. He just absolutely nailed it with the economy of words that really was his hallmark. That, so many guys in today's world, they're out there trying so damn hard to create a signature call, and not every goal deserves to be screamed at, but there are a lot of guys that's just sort of their baseline. And Jim was always, the game was the star of the show. He was just there to describe it. It was a simpler time. In Vancouver, we got hockey on television on Wednesdays on BCTV, and then Hockey Night in Canada, just one game on Saturday. Otherwise, it was up to our imagination through Jim Robson to listen to these games and let him describe what was going on, and he did it as well as anybody could. And again, I always felt like he put the game on the pedestal and then worked around what he was witnessing. He wasn't trying to be the star. He was just in a fortunate position to be out there letting us all know exactly what was going on with this hockey team that we followed. And the other thing, guys, is, and this is so true, and I've seen other people say this, so this isn't necessarily an original thought, but that first decade of Canucks hockey, the 70s, Jim Robson was the best thing about the Vancouver Canucks for a decade. Like, he was so much better than the team that he was describing, and we're kind of back at this point in time where the games aren't very good, the games don't matter much, and yet Jim knew that they still mattered to an audience back home, and every time the puck dropped, he was ready to go, he was prepared, he was thorough, and just had this knack of bringing these games to life. So, I'm glad that he had the chance to call a couple of Stanley Cup finals. It does seem a little cruel and unfair that he didn't get a chance to see the Vancouver Canucks win a Stanley Cup, but that quest will continue after his passing. But, as the games got more significant in the playoffs, his level went up. Again, didn't overcall those games, didn't have to, just did what he did as well as just about anybody that's done the job.
And Jeff, you remember last week?
At every moment.
You talk about the scope and who hurt him. We're talking about whether or not Nick Eamon-Warry can play in the Super Bowl for the Seattle Seahawks. What did Greg Bell down in Seattle say to us? He'll play. He'll play.
Yeah. Pretty good reach.
And that one, like that game, I think a lot of people will look back at Game 6 in the 94 Stanley Cup Final as, Game 7 of the 2011 should have been, but it wasn't obviously the way it went. So Game 6 kind of stands alone as maybe the biggest victory in Canucks home ice history. And for him to have one of his signature moments there, again, he met the occasion perfectly. Yeah. I think a lot of people will look at that. I've watched a bunch of highlights here in the last 24 hours, just kind of reliving my childhood. And the Greg Adams goal to punch the ticket to the Stanley Cup Final in 94, again, there's a simplicity to it. Linden off the boards, Back-to-Babbage shot, Potvin has trouble with it. Greg Adams. And I know the story is that Jim didn't like the call. He couldn't come up with anything else, so he started saying Greg Adams. But it was perfect or pretty darn close. But I think my favorite part of that description, guys, is the 14 seconds into double overtime. And then it's not really declarative. It's not the Vancouver Canucks are going to the Stanley Cup Final. It's almost this wonderment that this guy that has described these games for so long, the Vancouver Canucks are going to the Stanley Cup Final. Like, it's almost like I'm here.
You just discovered it.
I can't wrap my head around it. And I think we all felt that way, right? Like, the Vancouver Canucks are going back to the Stanley Cup Final. So, I thought he absolutely crushed that call, even if he didn't like it.
He absolutely did, as he did just about every big moment and every big call throughout his glorious 91 years, and many of them, of course, entertaining all of us on the radio or on our televisions. Jeff, beautifully put. We'll let you get back to your vacation. Thanks for the time.
Yeah, thanks for allowing me to share a few memories. Had a lot of them swimming around my mind here, and as we said, at 91, he lived an incredible life. married to be for so long, and she recently passed as well. So I think of their 4 children, and every time that I'm in front of a microphone, will continue to be inspired by the guy that was the inspiration at the start of all this, and all these years later, still think of Jim Robson as fondly as I did then. And so I'm delighted to see the love that is being shared for this revered figure in BC sports history.
Couldn't imagine doing this show without you, Jeff. Thanks. Secure some price from the Historic Wall Center. This next segment brought to you by Levelware. Golf having a moment right now, and not just the traditional sense. Used to feel buttoned up. It's become way more cultural. You're seeing athletes from all sorts of sports, even surfers, using it as a way to hang out, just enjoy the game differently. And that shift is exactly where Hurley's collaboration with Levelware comes in. Hurley brings that laid-back board sports energy. And the collection pulls inspiration from Hawaiian and coastal prints, relaxed, expressive, rooted in lifestyle. Levelware takes that inspiration and brings it to life through performance-driven, sustainably made apparel that's actually built to move and play. The result, the Fairwaves collection, modern golf silhouettes that feel lighter, more wearable, less rigid, respectful of the game's roots, but definitely not stuck in tradition. This collection is live, available on the Levelware website. Go to levelware.com. Check out the polos, hoodies, hats, and casuals. That's levelware.com. And we're joined now by Patrick Johnston, columnist for the Province and Postmedia, who joins us from the Milan games, where he's covering hockey. How you doing?
Yeah, well, I'm good. I can't wait for an actual. Well, we had games. I watched a bit of Finland, Slovakia before I came back to the hotel, so that was fun. And honestly, guys, like the arena, nice and steep, so everyone has great view. And listen, the ice probably not perfect, but it's pretty good. The teams are pretty good. And there were a lot of Slovaks and a lot of Finns, and they'd all had a lot of beer, and they were having a really good time.
Yes, Slovaks and Finns do. I can speak on the Slovak side of things, and we've all seen the Finns at international tournaments.
And that has wet the whistle, though, hasn't it? That opening game. That sort of showed us.
It's a heck of a game.
It was a great hockey game.
No, it's a terrific game. Looking forward to Canada getting underway. First of all, we are just having a riot here with Sidney Crosby as chaperone for the rest of the team. The team photo where he looks like the teacher, the way he's shepherding everybody into and out of the Milan metro. Tell me, though, I want to the vibe, and particularly our boy Macklin Celebrity, who is a vibe unto himself. What are you picking up around the Canadian team?
Well, listen, very focused. I had a wonderful chat with Bo Horvat today. These days ago, one of the things I'm sort of working on is I'm going to write the Bo thing, but I'm working on what do you guys actually practice? There's been 3 days skating together, but what is this? You had preseason, you had your NHL team, and now you guys are literally the best players on the planet. So, what are we talking about here? And more than anything, it's getting your feet moving. I mean, Bo's is I'm like, what are you picking up here? He goes, I got to skate faster, and think about it, right? His line is going to get matched up in practice against McDavid's line or McKinnon's line, and you're just catching your breath nonstop. The vibes are good. Yeah. They're feeling confident. They're feeling good. They're really enjoying, I think, the Olympic experience here, such as it is. It is a bit of a different one because of the decentralized nature of it all. And, I was talking with a couple of people today about this, and, it's very much the Olympics are in Milan, but Milan's not necessarily in the Olympics. Because the 4 venues are the 4 rinks, the 3 venues are sort of spread around the city. But that said, you go to the Duomo and there's the International Broadcast Center, and there's the center because it's just not somewhere I need to go. But you walk around the center, there's lots of stuff around. So it's sort of been a slow burn into all of it, and the hockey gets going. The fans have been into it. I think the players, we saw, like we said, the Finns and the Slovaks, they're itching and ready. They were itching and ready to go, and they're going. And we've got Italy and Sweden coming up after we talk. And it's just, it's the best on best thing. right? Like everyone is really excited to do that again. And I think honestly, the sort of the Four Nations experience for all the Canadians and the Americans, especially, that's something they've been talking about, and just the way, obviously there was bigger context to some of that for the fans anyway, but the players were like, I want to beat those guys. Like this matters. So yeah, I think there's sort of a focus and an energy here that is exciting, and I can't wait for tomorrow night.
I think Horvat is there partially due to the fact that he reported for duty for the Worlds last year on a pretty stacked Worlds team. And between the opener being as big of an upset as it was, and the fact that Canada got punched in the mouth in the World Hockey Championships post Four Nations face-off, to me that's a good thing. They sent a nearly Olympic level team to the Worlds, and they got punched in the mouth. They were not very good, and it's a reminder, isn't it? You get that Four Nations face-off victory, and you think, okay, we're the best, and we need confidence, obviously. But it was a reminder. The rest of the world is good too, and there are other teams that will have something to say about this, and Canada can't go in overconfident into even the games against non-USA teams.
Yeah, and like I put the same question, so the practice question to John Cooper, and he said, he'd already sort of talked about the camaraderie his squad had built, and the focus they had on leaning on what was built last year. Like I said, John, like, what are you guys actually able to practice here? And it was very much about just getting the group back into the space that it was in the Four Nations. And you're right. The World Championships did not go well, and that was a frustration for them for sure. But you're also right. Like Bo Horvat is kind of an avatar for the edge of the roster. Like you knew who the bulk of these guys were going to be. But he admitted, like, when he didn't get picked for Four Nations, that like was tough, and that was something he wanted. And he basically said, "I'm going to make the Olympic team. Like, this is something I have to do. This is a goal that I have." And that's the kind of energy this team needs, right? Like guys who are just going to push and push and push. And like, obviously, he is not going to center unless there's some huge catastrophic injury, he is not going to be centering a top two line here, right? Like, he is there to take faceoffs. He is there to be a sort of an interesting weapon on the second power play unit. He is there to help the penalty kill. And that's what he's there for. Like, he's a grinder, and he's a guy that's going to be asked to do a job that isn't necessarily the job that he does for the New York Islanders or has done for the Vancouver Canucks, but it's certainly one we know he can do. And I think that's the ethos that this team needs. Obviously you've got the intensity of everyone talks, I wrote this, by the way, today. Everyone talks about the intensity of Nathan McKinnon, right? And a lot of that goes back to that podcast appearance by our old pal Nikita Zadorov on some Russian podcast, just talking about what a nut McKinnon is. And yet, I will tell you guys that Sidney Crosby and Connor McDavid are, I don't know if as intense, but they're not far off, right? And I will, as I put in my story, like Marcus Pettersson told me about how Chris Letang and Sidney Crosby will come off the ice and they will be yelling at each other on the bench because the other one wasn't up to snuff. And then after the game, they're laughing. And like there's a standard that they put on each other that you're like, you're better than this. You can achieve, you can be this, you can be a championship winner. It's interesting to note, I think it's important to note that when Zadorov said all that stuff, which was praising, to be clear, of McKinnon, that was before the season, that was leading into the season where Colorado won the Stanley Cup, right? I saw Curtis Lazar at some point. The Oilers were here, I think, before Christmas. And it was in fact opening the season. And I said, how is it? He's a good guy. He's been around the league. He's been in a lot of teams. And he goes, man, McDavid, man, like, holy smoke, this guy wants to win. Lazar shows up preseason, captain skates before the team even has training camp, right? They're just skating together. And the sort of level of expectation and focus that McDavid brought to those sessions. Lazar said, you can see why these guys have made the Stanley Cup final 2 years in a row. So there's a drive and a focus on this team that the other guys, Horvat's half joking, but truly, like, everyone's got to keep up. So it's a team that is trying to do stuff. We'll see how it goes. Obviously, they got some big rivals here, and obviously they're going off right off the bat against a pretty tough team in those Czechs. But this is a team that really does believe in itself.
Let's just hope they have chickpea pasta at the Athletes Village cafeteria. What can you tell us about Mr. Patterson and Team Sweden?
Mr. Pettersson. Well, I mean, he's on a line with Zibanejad and Raquel. At least that was what he was skating on. He is, let's be clear, not a big guy on this team. He's there to kill penalties, and that's going to be his job. And if he somehow finds a way and brings up his game, great. That's good for everyone involved. That certainly would be, I think, good for the Swedes. But he remains this. I mean, I don't know if enigma is the word now, but he's just this guy that was exciting and has lost that. And it still does lots, as we know, lots of things really well and has moments. But he is certainly far from the center of the story for these Swedes. And even you talk to the Swedish reporters, and they're sort of as befuddled by him as we are in English. The talents there. He's picked the team, and I don't think anybody thinks he doesn't deserve to be on this team. There's certainly no sort of reaction. Oh my goodness, can you believe this guy is so step behind? The practices, he's skated hard, and he's been out staying late in practice and kind of doing some of the stuff we often see from him. But certainly, yeah, like I said, he is he like Bo Horvat is far from the center of this team.
Do you have any light to shed on Philip Forsberg being the 13th forward for that team?
I don't. That surprised me. Yeah, that surprised me. I mean, listen, the Swedish team has lots of good things going for it and does have some talent. It's a tricky one. I mean, I had to pretend to be the Toronto
They're not that
reporter.
deep. Come on. He's better than half the forwards that are online.
Probably,
rushes.
yeah. Like this is what I was going to say. I had to play Toronto reporter yesterday because William Nylander missed practice. No, that's a weird choice, and it is a tough environment here to figure out what's going on. There's a lot of cages going on. The Swedes, more than anyone, have been sort of managing. Listen, they haven't closed practice, or did they close practice?
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
They did. Okay. That's right. They've been, I would say, the cagiest of all the teams, right? The Americans have literally been making their players walk through the mix zone. And so you've had this somewhat hilarious scene of Connor Hellebuck, no mask, no gloves, very sweaty, just kind of walking through. And, he's talked. Miller has walked through, and I will say declined to talk, but I'm not sure anybody has really asked for him. I mean, I tried to sort of talk to him the other day, and, listen, I'm not going to make a big deal out of it. But yeah, those guys are marching. The Canadians have been pretty good. If there was some stumbles in the closed practice. I mean, Pierre LeBrun was right. That was silly. There was no reason for it. Other than the sort of explanation was ridiculous. But listen, nobody cares about our problems. We still talk to the players after practice, so that was mostly useful for me. And they made it, but the Swedes have been like, here's who's available today. Here's who's available tomorrow. And here's who's available, and their approach was, we're going to make everybody, everyone will speak once before our first game. And that's it.
That's appropriate.
And
can I,
it's fine. But anyway, they've been the most cagey. So what they're thinking there, what's going on Forsberg, I cannot really tell you. We'll find out.
I understand Patterson is not with third line billing a top man, as you say, for Sweden. But Blake and I were kicking this around yesterday. Of course, Leo Carlsson isn't there. He's hurt.
Right.
The centers above his line are Elias Lindholm, who used to be his second line center, and Joel Eriksson Ek, who's a darn good player, but maybe isn't really a creator. No. Is there not some upward mobility available here to Petey? I look at their team and I go, wow, Nylander, Kempe, Raymond, Bratt, who's a creator on his own, and not to mention Zibanejad and Raquel, two pretty decent goal scorers on his line. Is there not a world where Elias Pettersson can up his lot on this team and be a more prominent player, given his ability to create for others?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, you're not wrong. And yet it's the sort of selection by omission. And the fact that those guys have been preferred, and I think Eriksson Ek's sort of truly two-way prowess has put him ahead. And you're not wrong. Listen, you're not wrong. And, if we had dialed back 5 years ago and said, would Elias Pettersson be one of the top two centers for Sweden at the Olympics, I think you would have said yes. But right now, he is not that guy. Is the opportunity there? Absolutely. And, it could be a big turning point in the narrative of his career at this point. But in the end, this is a guy like J-Pat. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to remember. It's been so long ago. I know we talked about this last week. Like, how many shots was it in how many games and no goals? Like,
yeah. Well,
I get the Canucks aren't very good.
Look, if you're a Canucks fan, and that means you're a Canadian fan too, I would suspect, please don't let it be this next fortnight. But by the same token, if it happens this next fortnight, at least there's something to hang on to with the $11.6 million.
If you think you can transfer it back to the team.
Well, that's the other thing. Because needless to say, his wingers are not of a Raquel Zibanejad, Raymond Nylander level with the Vancouver Canucks. Lastly, here would be remiss without a word or two on the passing of Jim Robson, please.
Yeah, I mean, I noticed this, noted this. I guess it was midday on Tuesday. What day is this? Wednesday. I'm in this Olympics brain now. Where it's like, what day is this? This is day. Bruce Arthur has been arguing with people over which day it is since the Olympic tournament started. The women's tournament started before the opening ceremonies. Is this day 11 or is this day 6 or 5 or whatever? But anyway, I noted here because the news came down in the evening for us. First of all, everyone remembers the Greg. For me, Greg Adams is the call. But and the thing I always kind of find funny is that truthfully, most people even then still didn't hear that one. People were watching TV, right? Like there were lots of people that heard the radio. There is absolutely no doubt about this. But nonetheless, was there and is remembered as such a sort of central figure in the first 2.5 decades from the team's existence. And just a lovely guy. I think we've all got our tales certainly working here. And a guy that in many ways was, he was a record keeper, like all the old writers. But there were certainly times in recent years where I'd be looking back, especially when we were doing our Canucks 50 season, and I was working on a story and I'd need to sort of get some context or what was kind of happening or whatever. And I would call Jim because he, play-by-play guys take notes, right? And he'd have his lineup, and some of the stuff was, things I could find myself, but just trying to get some nuance and trying to remember, and there were times ago, so long ago, I can't really remember, but there'd be an anecdote there. And the one that stands out for me, the encounter, was the first time, he was in the press box in December 2018, and the days where they made it easy to get in if you were a reporter or a retired reporter. And Jim had season tickets for a long time, but he would come sit in the press box, and he sat next to me, and that was an absolute thrill. And we sort of talked about the state of the team and what I thought. And obviously I was still obviously I've been paying attention and writing about the team, even if I wasn't a full-time beat writer at that point. But was curious what I thought and what I was hearing and what I was seeing and who I was impressed or not impressed by. And he also said, I enjoy your call. You're doing a great job. And, as a guy that grew up in this town, that was kind of everything. So, listen, I hadn't talked to him, spoken to him in a while, but, he'd been at the rink a few times. And, I was talking to Kyle Bukowskis today about it. And, Kyle was here with the Hockey Night in Canada Leafs Traveling Roadshow just, 10 days ago. And Jim was at the game. And got to spend some time talking to him, and it really was. It was quite it's quite the stunning news. Even at 91, and he'd become frail, and his wife had passed away, not so long ago, and he was now in a care home himself, and it's stunning. It closes a door on an era that I think is rightly remembered fondly, even if it's still like the era had came up short on total success. but just a lovely guy and a guy that cared about fans, right? Like that's the thing, right? The shut-ins, the blind, pensioners and all that. Like he cared about the people who were listening, who paid attention to the team, as I think we all do. We try to represent the fans, and that I think more than ever is something that, it's something more than ever I think we need to make clear. Like that's the task for us, is to try to explain to people who are paying attention to the team, who don't necessarily have access to what's going on, to why what's happening is the way it is, and then try to explain the story of this never-ending passion for a team that is just never quite going to give us what people want.
And he instilled that passion in many, and you're right, he was a voracious reader and listener to all sorts of commentary around the team. Everybody had their, as we talked about in the opening block, everybody had their Jim Robson pulled me aside moment. So, Patrick, thanks for this.
And I just want to take one more moment. I just want to recognize, like, Steve Ewan, who is in his own camp about. Steve came off the bench yesterday. It was just the way the days worked, and Steve said, he said, I'm going to do it. He originally wasn't going to work, and when the news came in, Steve called, and he called everybody. He called Shorty, he called Batch, he called Greg Douglas. Like he called all the guys that would know, and they all had their stories. And so he's got a wonderful tribute up on province.com, and I cannot commend it enough.
Read it this morning, front page of the Vancouver Sun, and deservedly so, with a huge photo of an icon in this province. Peach, thank you for this. Enjoy the games. We'll catch up next week.
Take care, guys.
Harrison Price from the Historic Wall Center.
In the segment, a presentation of Pacific Blue Cross. They want to send you out on the road, folks. The ultimate Canucks road trip. Get Pacific Blue Cross travel insurance along the way. You also get your chance to see the Canucks on the road, complete with flights, hotel, lower bowl tickets, and more. No purchase necessary. Contest ends February 28th, 2026. Enter now at pacificbluecross.ca/Canucks.
Many of you will know our next guest, Bill Good, as a more than a quarter-century talk show host on CKNW, or 17-plus years on the CTV nightly news here in Vancouver. But before he moved into the serious business of news, he got his start in sports reporting like his namesake father, and was there for the rise of Jim Robson, BC broadcasting legend, at the first Vancouver Canucks hockey game in the NHL ever, and even served as his color man on Hockey Night in Canada for a bit. And he joins us now from his home on the Sunshine Coast. Bill, good to see you again. Thanks for making time, my friend.
Oh, my pleasure, boys.
Tell us about the Jim Robson you knew.
Oh, gosh, if I had to describe him in a word or two, it would be beloved, professional, humble, outstanding, just a terrific broadcaster and an even better person.
Being a good person made him a good broadcaster, though, too, right? Because people always just talk about the way they felt not broadcasted to, per se. It didn't feel like they were... it felt like they were being painted a picture by a friend almost as they were listening.
He was in the living room. Yeah,
he was a very unique talent.
What do you remember about your first interactions with Jim Robson?
Well, my father was in the business, and so I would have met Jim a few times just casually, at an event, maybe at a practice or at a game, a post game show that my dad might have been doing. So I knew him, and then of course I was in the business before we started doing hockey together. So I had a lot of interaction with him. I always admired him, found him a very very likable person, a very easy guy to get along with. He was always very welcoming, as I've heard a number of people talk about him. He was just a genuinely great person.
When did it become clear that we were in the midst of greatness, Bill? Like, at what point do you think the province recognized just how good a hockey play-by-play man this was?
Well, I can't put my finger on a time. It was, looking back on it, it always seemed to be the case. He was extremely popular. He was 10 years older than me. So I got to listen to him just as a fan. I remember him doing reconstructions of Vancouver Mounties baseball games, which was, something to behold as you get into the business and realize how difficult that must have been and how good he was at it. And then, I had listened to him for some time before I actually got to work with him, but he was a very easy person to be around and to work with.
Take us back to opening night for the Vancouver Canucks, October 1970, Bill, and there you are with Ted Reynolds. You're the game host that night on television. Jim Robson is up in the broadcast booth doing the radio play-by-play. The excitement, the zest, the fervor in town as we got ourselves an NHL team.
Well, I'm looking at that picture right now, and I must say I'm reminded of a conversation I'd have with the great Pat Quinn when we got to be friends much later in life. And I said, looking back at those pictures, we were both young and skinny and had dark hair. So it brings back a lot of memories. I mean, it was a great thrill. I was in my early to mid 20s and being on national television and getting to work on Hockey Night in Canada, something we all grew up with. It was a great thrill.
Tell us about your time beside him in the booth as his color analyst.
Well, it was in those days, people who did color weren't really analysts. We were filling in the time between whistles with backgrounds of players, where they grew up, where they came from, where they might have gone to school. We didn't act as analysts. Ray Ferraro hadn't been invented yet. He was he was only about 10 years old at the time. I looked it up last night. Somebody I admire greatly now, but the roles were very different in those days, and it was groundbreaking. You grew up watching the Leafs and the Canadians on Saturday night, and suddenly we were in the league. But I was thinking about this the other day when I was watching your show, and you were talking about the 4:00 starts. Think back in those days, we only did 12 hockey games on television. They were all on Saturday night. They were all at 4:00 in the afternoon to meet the Toronto time zone. And we thought it was great. I know my wife and I, she'd go to the game, I'd broadcast the game, and then we'd have time to go out and have a nice dinner. It was so we looked very fondly at the at the time.
With his passing, we've come to realize that he was known nationally, and of course he did work nationally for here and there, bits and bytes. But he doesn't get talked about. Hadn't been in the same echelon as Hewitt and Cole for the national audience, despite his reputation. Did we appreciate him nationally as much as we should have while he was here?
They came to. It took a while. It took a little while, but interesting. You didn't mention one name, Danny Gallivan. The night we did that opening game, Danny Gallivan did the radio broadcast on CKNW, so that Jimmy could do hockey, and NW gave up Robson every Saturday night for hockey, so that he could do the television broadcasts, and just something I remembered from looking back on that night.
He was known for his meticulous preparedness, Bill. What was it like to have to work with a guy like that and sit beside him doing these games?
He was the internet before the internet.
That's right.
Yeah, well, it was an honor. It was, you didn't think about it in those terms in those days. I mean, that was the job. You went to work. I grew up, with a dad who was in the broadcast business, and he did post-game broadcasts on CKNW, touchdown topics, and I would drive home as he took guests like Jackie Parker and Frank Rigney and Rolly Miles, and he'd drive them back to their hotels after the broadcasts, and so I was pretty comfortable with the role early on. When I look back, I just look back at what a wonderful time it was and how lucky I was to have the career I had.
Are we losing the art of play-by-play here a little bit, Bill? As a guy that's in the business now, it seems like I don't know, the screaminess of play-by-play these days seems to win the day, and I It's almost the Americanization of play-by-play here in Canada a little bit.
I look at it differently. I look at Vancouver's history, and we had Jim Robson, then we had Jim Hewson, and now we got Shorty. We've had a history of the best of the best in terms of play-by-play broadcasters, and I don't know. The difference is with the 500 channel universe, we have so many.
Yes.
And I watched the Super Bowl the other day. Mike Tirico doing the play-by-play, and another night it'll be Al Michaels, who's still going at 80 or 81 years old. No, I'm a great admirer of Vin Scully. I look back on his work, and I know he was a hero of Jim Robson's. And no, I think we've got a tremendous amount of talent out there. There's just so many more that you don't identify so much with one person anymore.
Yeah, and I do think growing up back east, I was aware of Jim Robson. He was a guy who transcended this market, like Scully did, like Jack Buck did out of St. Louis, like some others did, where they were just so good they became undeniable, Bill. And they got their just rewards in a pre-internet era in terms of traversing time and space and reaching audiences that weren't domestic.
What we didn't have to put up with were the comments and the abuse that people now have to take online. I watched some of the commentary or some of the comments online of people like Chris Collinsworth, who did the Super Bowl the other day, and I look and I see people criticizing them. And as a former broadcaster myself, I admire them, and I find their work to be very professional and very good. I think there's just a host of terrific play-by-play and color commentators today, and a lot of women who are incredibly competent too, and they just never had a chance in my day.
I'm hearing he doesn't miss that text message inbox at CKNW when he's doing his show.
Hey, it's no coincidence. John Shorthouse, Gord Miller, they're not on social media.
No, it's fair.
Just best to stay away from it.
Fair.
And Shorty's terrific. I mean, he is. He's always very humble, which I think he learned from Jim. But he's and when Larscheid came along and. He didn't have a hockey history, but he learned the game and became terrific. And he and Robson were absolutely gold together.
Salt and pepper.
Yeah.
Went together perfectly.
Jim, a last word or two here. What else should be said about Jim Robson?
Oh, there aren't enough platitudes. He was just a wonderful, wonderful person. And I noticed, I think it was in September, that his wife, Bea, had passed away. And then I'd see shots of Jim still going to hockey games at 90 and 91, and he was one of a kind. He was an absolute gem of a person and a broadcaster, and I was privileged to know him and work closely with him for 10 years.
Marvelous stuff, Bill. Thank you for the memories here of Jim. We appreciate you making time and joining us. We also appreciate his eyes and ears. He watches us daily, listens to us daily from his abode on
and you got to stop taking those days. Stop taking those days off. I spent 10 minutes trying to find you yesterday, and you weren't anywhere to be found.
I got an angry note.
Duly noted. Duly noted. Thank you, Bill.
Appreciate this, Bill. Thank you.
Pleasure.
So here's some Price from the Nation Network studio here at the historic Wall Center in the studio built by Arbor Lee. Cheer harder when you're well-rested. Sheraton Vancouver Wall Center puts you minutes from the arena, miles ahead the next morning. Lock in your game day stay at wallcenter.com. We have got to talk about the Canadian women's hockey team.
Yeah.
Because that was not the Canadian women's hockey team that I'm familiar with. I mean, to lose a close game to the United States, to lose a game where it just gets away from you late.
Matt, I think you just underlined the problem without even knowing it.
Too many of the
problem
old
is
players.
It is the Olympic team that you're familiar with. That's the problem. They have not turned the page.
They have not turned over the next cohort. Yeah.
There's 6-7 collegiate players on the U.S. team.
And the Canadians team is made up entirely of PWHL players.
Yeah.
And
there it is.
They were outright ragdolled by the United States
Wasn't
yesterday in a 5-0 wind. I was all excited to watch the game. I turned it off after 2 periods. Blake, I couldn't take it anymore.
I was just going to see if they could score a goal and who would do it, but
Not even that.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, you don't often see a Canadian hockey team, the Maple Leaf, get handled like that in ice hockey. And look, the U.S. women are the defending champions, Olympic champions. We talked about the rivalry series and how it got lopsided in terms of score. Now, we have seen other windows where the U.S. has dominated, and then lo and behold, the chips are down at the Olympics or World Championships, and Canada rises up. And Marie-Philippe Poulin, of course, Canada's best player, Canada's golden goal hero 3 times over, did not play, lower body injury, and they're also wondering whether there might be a head injury there, too, after the hit she took. But I saw your tweet. I mean, as good as Pooh is, she's not 5 goals good.
No. Makes it 5-1?
Yeah,
Makes it
you're not winning
4-1?
this game with her in the lineup.
No.
So they are going to have to get a grindy victory over the United States
That's
if they meet again in the gold
It's
medal
going to be a
match.
1-0 or 2-1 game.
Blake,
That's the only way.
I'm also wondering, because we've seen this happen to the United States at World Championships and at Olympics. In fact, happened in Canada a couple years ago at the World Championships. If I'm not mistaken, against Finland. I'm wondering if this is going to be one of these rare best-on-best tournaments where you don't see Canada and the United States in the gold medal game.
I mean,
Where Canada drops the semi sort of thing.
I mean, providing Canada finishes second, in the standings, it's still on track for them to take care of the rest of business and meet them in the final. But yeah, I mean, they're going to have to clamp down and play trapping, ugly hockey to win it, which is a weird way for Canada to try to go about things.
Mm-hmm.
But I think
if you can't score with them and you can't skate with them, and they could not skate with them, and they could not score with them,
I think it's very safe to say that there's going to be a review on why these players were chosen, because there was a big criticism back in the day when Mel Davidson was in charge of this team that she had favorites and it was very hard to crack her inner circle.
Yeah, but she won, Blake. So, spare me the...
Yeah.
She won. I mean, I covered some of Mel's teams. She was a boss.
Well,
she had that thing dialed down to... You remember they were playing exhibition games against like midget AAA teams on off days here in Vancouver 2010?
Well, back then, though, remember, there was the dichotomy of they would win Olympics, the Americans would win Worlds. And back and forth it would go. So there was still plenty of time for navel gazing and wondering how they could get better. My point is, let's not return to that where it is a case of favorites and incumbents just getting carte blanche here when there's other young talent. Like maybe Chloe Permarano should have had her moment.
She absolutely should have had them. I saw a lot of discussion about her as a defensewoman who can rush the puck.
This defense seems slow here.
Yeah. Mike's got the graphic here. So remember, Canada has this makeup game against Finland because the Finns were ill and were unable to participate in the opener. And some said at the time that should have been a forfeiture. I thought it was good Olympic spirit to say, no, let's play this game.
Extenuating circumstances.
Absolutely. Yeah. So if Canada beats Finland tomorrow, here's your quarterfinals: U.S., Italy, Canada, Germany, Czechia, Sweden, and Finland. Switzerland.
The consequences are not grave of that loss yesterday. It's more just the projections of what would look like come medal round.
It's process, style points, or lack thereof, as you would say. It's a silver for Canada in short track yesterday in the mixed team relay. And looking for 7 medals out of short track. This is usually a discipline where we do very, very well. You see the winners there. I should mention Courtney Sareau, her father Yves played 100-plus games in the National Hockey Leagues. It's just the 3 medals for Canada, no golds yet, or at least as we record this. It is a silver and a pair of bronzes. Disappointing 5th for Maya Schwinghammer in the women's moguls today. She was a contender there. And a terrific Olympic story because you're thinking, oh, moguls, or is she from Alberta, BC, Quebec? How about Saskatoon and what's the hill called?
Blackstrap.
Blackstrap. Did they call it mountain? Did they have the temerity to call it mountain?
I think they did. I've been there. It's not much. It is really like it would probably take you 5 minutes to walk up it. It is the former dump for Saskatoon that they covered over and said, let's put a ski lift on it.
So our father did a very tearful, proud interview with
cute.
Ariel Helwani. It was just marvelous at the bottom of the hill. And, of course, Moguls, this should be at least one, if not two medals for Canada on the men's side with the absolute GOAT, Mikhail Kingsbury. He has won 100 times on the World Cup Tour. He's nearing 150 podiums on the World Cup Tour. Now, he doesn't have the Olympic gold yet. That's the last bastion.
That's the thing.
He's got a number of bronze medals at the Olympics. But there's a second contender there as well in men's moguls in Julian Veal, who is kind of like the understudy to Kingsbury, the king. So we're slow starters. We mentioned this Monday. We're Canada notoriously slow starters at the games, but let's get it into gear. Mike, do you have the medal board up? Have we put the medal board up?
I've got it here.
Yeah, because, here's the thing. As Mike said to me earlier, medal count when you don't require a lot of counting. I mean, look at the Norwegians. Now, a lot of the cross-country skiing and biathlon is in there. And the host Italians are doing quite well as well. But there you go. We got a lot of ground to make up here.
Yeah, he does have the gold from Pyeongchang.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Yes.
But just the one, considering his success.
Well, that's it.
He
goes in.
fourth Olympics.
That's
so,
right.
Yeah.
A couple of things I want to highlight from cross-country biathlon. First of all, have you seen this Norwegian cross-country skier Klæbo and how he ascends uphill?
Yes.
I would love to play
Sprinting.
you the video, folks, because it really paints the picture here.
He accelerates uphill.
I know Jim Robson, but both in the skating style, the way he accelerates and gets the muscles moving, whereby like he is gaining traction. It's incredible to watch because the difference between him and the others who are losing time and using extra effort and extra movement to do that skate style up the hill where it's a long extended stride. And this guy with his shorter, more compact, every muscle in propulsion is just, he's revolutionizing cross-country skiing. I mean, we're talking about an activity that was around for hundreds of years before it became a sport. And this guy is revolutionizing how you get up the hill, not just on the skating side, but also the running style as well, Blake.
Classic. Yeah.
In the classic, he is on pace, uphill on skis for a less than 6-minute mile.
It's crazy.
And then there's his countryman and teammate, the Norwegian biathlete. This is one for the ages, folks. He wins bronze, and then, unprompted, he planned this. This wasn't overcome with emotion. He gets asked a question about the race. He starts answering it and then veers and takes a turn.
I don't agree with that. He was asked who he wanted to thank. He thanked his coaches. He thanked his family. And then he said, well, there's one more person that I would like to thank, but she's not here.
It's his ex-girlfriend. He said, 6 months ago, I met the love of my life, the most beautiful and kindest person in the world. 3 months ago, I made the biggest mistake and cheated on her. And I told her about a week ago. It's been the worst week of my life. As he gets tearful. He went on, maybe I'm stupid. Maybe I'm a member of the sorority. I didn't get that part. But I do stupid things. He said he's regretted it from the day he cheated. He realized that this is the woman for him in his life. I can't live my whole life keeping it secret from her. My only way to get to the goal is to tell her everything, put everything on the table. He then went on to say, darkly, committing social suicide might show her how much I love her.
Yeah.
She's responded,
Didn't work.
She's still mad.
Yeah. Didn't work.
Apparently not impressed with being put on the international spot.
Yeah.
And I understand that from her perspective. You're out there living your life trying to move on, and suddenly your phone is ringing from every worldwide news agency who wants to know if you're going to take him back.
And I get it from both sides. I mean, I think that he...
No, Blake, don't both sides this for the sake of family. We are not both sidesing this.
What do you mean?
We're with you.
With who?
The girl.
With the girl? See, I was watching this with the girls in my family, and they were all like, oh my gosh, go back to him. They were all imploring her to go back to him. They all thought it was the most romantic thing they'd ever seen in their life. Yeah.
Your daughters thought
yes. It's
this.
accountability.
I thought it grandstanded.
This is a world without accountability. He
Yeah.
took accountability. And he caught himself at the end and said, I realize now that I'm taking the spotlight away from my teammate Johan, so I apologize to him for doing this. I'm just speaking here from the heart, and this is what came out. I don't even know what I'm trying to accomplish here. I don't know. He was pretty thorough, I thought.
So you didn't think this was, okay, now I've won a medal. Now I'm on international television, and so I'm going to make my plea.
Matt, has he even outlined? Like, he's painted himself with that label now. Like, he could have done all this in private. He's put himself on the line.
Okay.
You think he's gonna get endorsements after this? No.
I think, look, it's biathlon.
Well, it's
There's
huge,
not
which
many.
is huge
No,
in
but
Norway.
so what I'm saying is,
Yeah.
it's not like he's going to be a global name or a household name over here. But in the countries that love them some biathlon, his star has risen. He becomes not just a garden variety bronze medalist. He becomes the guy who made the plea to his ex-girlfriend. Yeah, I do think there are things coming his way that otherwise would not have come his way, Blake. I think this was brand management par excellence.
I can't believe that.
I think this was launching pad of his social media and personality brand.
Show me where that has happened. This is a
There's
world
not
where
a lot of precedence here, Blake.
well, infidelity is everywhere in celebrity culture. Show me where it's done a guy well.
Hugh Grant.
I don't. He had scandal. I don't think it was infidelity. Was he
Yeah,
married
with
at
the
the time?
prostitute, and then he went on Leno, and he made fun of himself, and then
Yes.
suddenly everybody loved
But prostitution
foppish
isn't
Hugh
infidelity.
Grant again.
Prostitution isn't infidelity.
Of course it is. He was cheating on whatever starlet he was dating with a prostitute.
You know that for sure? He was with
He
somebody?
admitted it. He was busted. There's a mugshot.
No. Not that part, Matt. Was he with somebody at the time?
Oh, of course he was.
How do you know that?
Well, because they're always with someone.
Oh, okay. Good logic.
Hugh Grant cheated prostitutes. There you go, folks. Live and at the time day, Elizabeth Hurley. And everybody
remember
said,
them.
how could you cheat on Elizabeth Hurley with a prostitute? This guy wants to be the Hugh Grant of biathlon.
Okay. Do you know how long it took for Hugh Grant to actually... Hugh Grant was gone for a decade after that. Gone. So I disagree entirely with the premise.
No. He
Yes,
did Notting
was.
Hill. When
That was-
did he do Notting Hill?
Notting Hill was pre-scandal. Are you
Oh,
kidding me?
Blake.
Matt,
Blake.
it's true.
Notting Hill, scandal was 95.
Yeah.
Notting Hill was 99.
99?
Yes.
Okay, still 4 years later. 4 years.
What are the films he did immediately after the scandal? If you give me a moment, I will look that up for you.
Poorly researched.
Well, I didn't think we'd be going Hugh Grant
Well,
here.
you're telling me something crazy that...
He did Sense and Sensibility. He did 9 months.
9 months.
Okay, he did go away from 97 to 98.
Yeah.
So maybe there was a delay.
Yeah. There was an absence.
And then, of course, he became the scandalous antagonist in the Bridget Jones series.
Yeah.
Daniels something. Okay, Whitecaps.
Was a
Moving
left
right
turn.
along.
Left
Yeah,
turn.
I did not expect to have that conversation.
Relitigating
I thought we saw
Hugh
eye to eye
Grant.
on this guy. Grandstander.
My opinion doesn't matter. I'm just telling you.
I'm just saying it's hers, and she
Yeah.
has spoken, but she sided with me. Whitecaps, kits. Mike, you got the video here. Let's get the kits. Honestly, appropriate. I'm not gaga.
It's very subtle. They've had some.
It's very, very subtle.
They've had
It's
some
very,
flashy
very
ones
subtle.
recently,
Yeah.
so they've gone
gone
more
subtle. I'm fine
conservative.
with photo. And they're back home here. They leave for Houston on Saturday. It's a mini camp before heading to Costa Rica for their CONCACAF Champions Cup first match 1 week from today, everybody, against CS Cartagenas of Costa Rica. Oh, baseball. This is brutal. It happens every year now. Pitchers and catchers report, and managers sit there with a laundry list of pitchers and injuries they have to detail. It happened in Dunedin yesterday with John Schneider, Jay's skipper, although it was more than just pitchers. Outfielder Anthony Santander, the huge free agent, big money addition last year who barely played, well, he's out 5 to 6 more months, headed for shoulder surgery. Bowden Francis, who a couple of years ago looked like a promising young arm, almost had that no-hitter. He's done for the season, elbow surgery. And then there's Shane Bieber coming off Tommy John. He's going to miss the start of the season with forearm fatigue, but the Jays are being extra cautious there on a guy they re-signed and who re-signed on the cheap with the Blue Jays, Blake. And people at the time said, why would he re-sign so cheaply with Toronto? Is he worried about his arm and his injury, and he's just taking the bag when he can get it? Anyways, we'll see.
Bieber's disappointing. The other two were not part of the
right.
storybook run. So
Although Santander was expected to play a role this year because, of course, you've lost Bo Bichette, who was a big part of last year until missing the final month of the season.
he hit 178 last year. I think they're going to be okay with that.
Going to need Barger to keep it up, Lucas to keep it up, Clement. Jimenez going to have to play a whole lot now, and Okamoto, the new corner infielder, who Schneider says is going to play more third base than first. But some scouts who know the Japanese league wonder about whether he's going to hold up defensively at third base.
I haven't heard
in
a
the
George
bigs.
Springer update health-wise. Have you?
Well, he's just going to DH. He old.
But he's even
Okay, Mariners
full for
sign
that.
outfielder Connor Joe, ex of Cincinnati, but he's not the droid they're looking for. Still very, how disappointing. Mariners fans, you go to the ALCS, you get very, very close to going to your first World Series. Your general manager talks about adding a bat all off season. You bring back Naylor, okay, great move. But you knew you needed to go beyond Naylor because you lost Suarez. Ref Snyder and Connor Joe. Come on. I know you've got the good farm system. Buck up. It's just a brutal ownership there. Results of the poll question. Will we ever see prime Elias Pettersson again? Yes or no? People said.
No.
Correct. Percentage.
90.
79. Here's wrong about everything in this block.
Yeah, I got the no part right. I'm only off by 10%.
That was a tap-in.
I'm surprised by 21.5. That's a huge
Well,
surprise.
Amon says yes after 2 bottom outs. You get 2 top 3 picks. Stenberger McKenna and Alexei Joseph, 29 years old, will have 5-6 years of peak young stack team with him.
He's still not going to be a 100-point guy. Can he be a 70-point guy then?
He doesn't design prime. He doesn't define prime as 100. Cole says not in Vancouver, but I'm sure it comes back in another market. We saw a lot of that. And Michael, good honesty, says hoping yes, voting no. Errors and omissions from yesterday's program. I think I corrected myself in the moment. Closed practice for Sweden. They've had open and closed practices. And I got a note here about cups, but I don't know what it is. We'll get to that tomorrow. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Appreciate you spending some time connecting with the program. Please do Subscribe, costs you nothing, to all our assorted channels, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Follow on social, X, Insta, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Blue Sky Live on many of those platforms, noon Pacific time, weekdays. Now, programming note for this week. It's going to be a regular show tomorrow. We'll start at noon. On Friday, we are going after the Canada-Switzerland match. So it's going to serve as a bit of a post-game show. And in terms of the start of that, we're looking at, what?
3 o'clock. 3 o'clock.
It's that late?
Yeah. 12:10 thing puck drop, isn't it?
Anyways, right after Canada and Switzerland on Friday. We'll get you a more updated time tomorrow.
We'll see how quickly they get ready. There's a noon game today, and so we'll see when that ends.
Yeah. And please do support the community sponsors you hear us talking about. Keep it local.